Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com with a zero to deploy video with a Python framework that has become my favorite. Out of all the Python frameworks, I like this the best. I would like to do more work in this. It's not as popular as, if I were to rate like my favorite frameworks, I would probably rank them this one, which would be Masonite, then Fast API, then Flask, Django would then be sort of like at the bottom. I just find the patterns in Django so unlike pretty much all other frameworks, and just some of the things that I have to do seeming just so unnecessary because they're just things that like I, you know, you can take for granted in pretty much every other framework, like trailing slashes, and having to like be really careful about trailing slashes, like and then the difficulty it is to serialize objects without the use of some sort of third-party library, and the serializer that is built in like it generates like this weird output. Yeah, so Django isn't my favorite. I've gotten comfortable with it. I can definitely do stuff with Django competently. But Masonite, it's like Ruby on Rails, so it has like a lot of the features that I like about Ruby on Rails and Laravel. So if you like either of those frameworks, you'll like Masonite. It has a very much that feel, and yeah, it just works. So it's just a Python. It's a more robust Python framework that works. Because I really like Ruby on Rails, but I'm not a huge fan of Ruby. But I love Rails, and Rails is still the best in the sense like just the amount of abstraction and the smoothness of that level of abstraction. I'm yet to see another framework that really kind of quite nails it like Rails. So there's a reason why Rails is what is Rails. Okay, but let's get on with Masonite, because Masonite is very awesome. And if you want a Rails-like experience in Python, this is the way to go. Okay, so basically, I'll just start off from scratch. So I'm going to create a Python virtual environment, python-m -v/vnv. Yay. Okay, then what we do is we're going to install. Well, I got to turn on the virtual environment. So source /vnv/bin/activate. Okay, and again, I'm not explaining the whole virtual environment thing. I've done this in a lot of videos. I'm assuming at this point, if you're watching this video, you probably know enough about Python to know what I'm doing with the virtual environments. If not, read the articles over there at toots.alexmercedcoder.com. It's just the blog on my website, where I have articles that go real deep about what's going on with virtual environments and the big picture there. But I have my virtual environment where I can install dependencies nice and isolated. So then I do pip install Masonite. That'll install Masonite. Wonderful. Okay. We let that install. Okay, now that's installed, what we want to do is then create a project. So everything works around the command craft. So everything is craft. So if I want to create a new project, I do craft new. It's actually going to generate the project in this folder. It's not going to make a folder like usual, like you would expect most generators to do. It's actually going to generate the project in the folder that you're currently in. Cool. So that's done. Okay, so I have my project. Now there's this requirements.txt that gets unpacked. So we want to make sure we get these other dependencies. So I'm going to just do a pip install -r requirements.txt. That'll install the additional dependencies just in case. Let me just check if this .get ignore would catch my VNV. Yeah, it would. Goody. Okay, because later on I will, actually I just might as well create the git repo now. So git init. Good. Let's just do a git add dot git commit -m first commit. Just get that out of the way. Cool. So we're gonna just create a basic like dog API. So first stop in making any API is to get like the table and the database kind of all set up. So this is going to work a lot like Rails and Laravel, where you first create a migration. So I would say craft migration, which means generate migration, and then I give the thing a name. So create dogs table, and again, table name should always be plural and lowercase. Okay, so this is going to be --create flag that just tells it that it's a create migration. It's creating a table called dogs. Okay, and now that created a migration file that's in this databases folder. Now I go and edit the migration. Okay, and I'm just going to say, okay, it's going to create a table called dogs, currently with an ID field and a timestamps field, but I want more. I would also like a string field for the dog's name, and I would like a integer field, and all of this is in the documentation. So if you want to know what other types of fields you can do, that's all in there. String integer table, and yeah, and this is going to be age. Okay, so table and age. Now on that note, I want to make sure locally I want to use SQLite, so I want to make sure I do that. For some reason, by default, it's the .env file is set to use MySQL. I don't want to do that. I want to use SQLite. The cool thing about this is that the way it sets its database settings, that they're already configured for all the main types of databases. So if I go to config/database.py, see, it's all set based on environmental variables. So all I really care about is using SQLite for this situation. So I am just going to remember that that's SQLite. That's what I need here. And then later on, when I deploy, I'll use Postgres. Okay, but I just want to use that. Control C. And then I am going to go back to my .env file here and just replace this with SQLite. So that way it tries to connect to the SQLite database. And I will comment out the rest of these so that we can just use its default values. Okay, so now that that setting is set, what's going to happen is that it sees this is the variable. So then when it looks inside the database, that file we looked at a second ago, database.py, it's going to use, because of this, see, it's pointing to whatever that variable is pointing to. So the database settings it's going to use, it's based on that variable. So I don't have to really worry about playing around with this file. I just have to make sure I set the right environmental variables, which is just, I like that, where I don't have to like play around too much with that. Okay, kind of like database.yaml and Ruby and whatnot. But again, we made our migration. We have our migration file that describes the table we're going to create. So now I'm just going to migrate it with craft migrate. Okay, so now the table has been migrated, and now the database should exist. And there it is, Masonite.sqlite3. It exists. Okay, cool. So now we need a model. So I say craft model to do. I don't know if there's any other flags I really want to pass there. I think that's it. Craft model to do. Okay. Oh no, not to do. Craft model dog. Craft model dog. There we go. I'll delete the to do model. But essentially that's it. That should work. Okay. Why? Because the model is uppercase and singular. So this is just like Rails. I think Laravel also has these conventions. Uppercase and singular is the model name, and then it's going to look for a table that's plural and lowercase. So it's going to automatically use a table called dogs. And I just created that with my migration, so it should just magically work. But if I want to be explicit about it and just make sure that, hey, it's pointing to the right table, I could just do this. Table equals dogs. And I can explicitly say, this is the table. You can do that in Rails and in Laravel as well. Okay, cool. So that's that. So that's done. The next step is we have our model is to start creating our routes. Okay, so first I need to create a controller. So craft controller. And we'll call it to do. No, dog. And then I want this to be a resource controller. What a resource controller means it's just going to have all the CRUD routes, all the CRUD actions already in there. Okay, actually I'll just do the -r. There we go. So that's created. That's in this HTTP folder /controllers. And there it is. So it already has it all scoped out. Now one thing I really like about Masonite is that they give you a couple different ways to kind of handle requests and parameters and a variety of things. I do like one method, which is to just make the request part of the class instance. So I usually like setting that up because you can just get everything with the request class. You can get your params, your queries, your request body, it's all in there. So in that case, what we're going to do is first thing we're going to do is create a init method, pass in self, and oh wait, no, I also want to import request. I have to remember what's the from. Actually, I can just look at it from here. Welcome controller. Here I can just right here is what I want. Masonite request. I want to import that. I don't care about views because I'm creating an API. I'm not going to use the views at all. If you like Jinja, like you like Django with Jinja or Flask with Jinja, or really pretty much all these frameworks with Jinja, then this uses Jinja too. So that's fine. I generally just like building APIs. Okay, so init. So what we need to do is we have to include an argument. So it kind of does like dependency injection. So what we do is we say, hey, we also have a argument called the request that is of type request, because like Python has typing now, so we can do dependency injection, where you inject arguments into your functions using typing, and then we can just say self.request equals request. And where did I go wrong there? Unexpected indentation. Why? Oh, I forgot the def. There we go. Okay. And there we go. Now request is going to be the request object will be a property. You could also I could also do the same thing in the individual routes if I only want to bring in the request when I need it. I just find this more dry. I don't have to repeat myself. Even if now I'm asking it to do that during times where it's unnecessary, but I don't think it's a big ask. Okay. So there's that. Now see, again, it has presets for the methods. Again, I'm not using any kind of view, so I don't really need I don't need this edit route or this store route. Those can go. Okay. Now we'll do the show route. Again, the show route's to get one item. Oh, I gotta import the model. So I go from app.dog, import dog. Okay, because again, it's app, and then I have dog. So it's app.dog, and then inside the dog file, there's a dog class, and I'm importing the dog class, which is the model. So let's see here. Okay, so for the show method, what I want to do is I want to go get the ID param. I haven't created the route, so you don't know there's an ID param, but there will be. And I want to say equals self.request.param ID. So I'm going to get that from the URL. And then I want to say return dog.where ID equals ID dot get. So go get me that dog and return it, and that's it. That route's done. Okay, the index route, this one's even easier. So it's all the dogs, so it's just return dog dot all. Done. Okay, so I see this is pretty straightforward. Now we create a dog. We're going to be receiving the dog data from the request body, which it will be also inside the request object under input. Actually, everything's input. So the query, the params, and the body can all be in input, although there is a separate query property and a separate param property, which I like better because I like more explicit code. Okay. So in this case, what do I want? I'm going to go grab those individual properties. There's no way for me to grab them as a bundle that I'm aware of. That's one thing I don't like, because like in Ruby, it was easy enough to kind of just grab the whole deal. Even in Laravel, I'm pretty sure like with some typing, I was able to just grab all the properties. Here, I just have to grab them one by one. So I have to be like name equals self.request.input. Actually, there is a way to do it. There is a way to do it. It's a different method. I think it's like self.request.only. Yep. And then what you do is you just include, I think, return the specified variables in a dictionary, and I think you just say like name. I want to forget if it's one string or do I send multiple strings. So let's take a look at the documentation. Masonite docs. And let's go to requests. Okay. Only. Okay, yeah, so it's different strings. Okay. So I would just say, hey, I only want the name, and I want, what else is in there that I need to get the age. So that's another way I can do that, and then I can just sit there and say, return dog dot create. Again, I can just actually make this lowercase dog. And I should be able to sit there and say dog.create dog. Okay, and then that should be able to create the new dog. Yay. I like that. That's even simpler than the way I've done it in the past. Okay, update. Okay, so I still need to get the dog. I also need to get the ID, so I'll just copy these lines from there. Because I'm going to, and again, this is assuming that you're kind of familiar with what's called RESTful CRUD routes. So if you're not familiar with RESTful conventions or CRUD routes, watch my videos where I kind of cover that. I think I did a video recently that's just like a deep dive on like HTTP and backend development. Just type in like Alex Merced, REST, or CRUD. Okay, so I'm getting the ID, and then I want to get the details from the request. And then what I want to do is update the dog. So we're going to say, at the end, I'm going to return the dog in question. So I just can copy that. That's what I will do at the end. But I also want to update that dog first. So I'm going to say dog.where ID, comma, ID dot update, and then I pass in the dog to update. There we go. That one's done. And then we do the delete route, where I do want to go get the ID first from the param. And then all I want to do is delete the dog. Actually, I want to save the dog in a variable first so I can send it back afterwards. I was like sending back the deleted dog just in case somebody wants it. Okay, so we'll say dog equals that. And then I will do this. And I will delete the dog. Okay. And then I will return dog. Okay. I have to do that first because I can't really do this after I delete the dog, so that's not really an option. Okay, so that's set. Okay, I got all my actions. Now what I need to do is connect this controller and these actions to a route. So the way the routes are handled, okay, it should look a lot like the way it's done in Laravel, and which looks a bit like the way it's done in Rails. So as you can see, the theme here is like this is following that very same pattern. I go to config. No, actually not the config. I go to a folder called routes, and then there's a web.py. But I would say this is more similar to Laravel. So let me just get all the things I'm going to need. Get post, put, delete, and route group. Okay, so what I want to do is create a route group. So that way I can have them all kind of in the same category. So route group will take an array of routes, which we'll write in a second. And then as a second argument, okay, I can pass in the prefix for these. So that all of these will be under the namespace of /dogs. And that all have them be under the namespace of dog. And the names of these routes are really more for shortcuts. So that way I don't have to refer to them as like /dogs. I could just refer to it as dogs.this or dogs.that. I generally don't use that feature, but some people really like being able to kind of like refer to different routes and different pages in their website by a name. I just like using traditional URLs. I just feel like it's just a more universal language. Okay, so here we go. So let me start making these routes. So first we'll do the index route. So get, and then we have to specify the route. So that's just going to be /, and that's going to be for dog controller at index. Okay, and then it's dot name. If you give it a name, we don't have to, but might as well. And again, there's going to be 5 of these all together. So just to simplify this process, I will copy this 5 times and just alter them as needed. Okay, so next I want to do show. But show is going to be at a param, so it'd be at ID. That's how we mark a param. Actually, all of these will need a param. So let's get that out of the way. And then after that, I want to do the create, which is going to be a post request to slash dogs. And so this is going to be create. So basically, this is very much like Ruby on Rails or Laravel, where it's the controller and then the action. And the action is just the function that runs when that route is hit. Okay, so dog controller / create. Again, I'm just holding the Alt key to make the multiple cursors on Linux. Okay, this one's going to end up being the update route. So that should be a put request. And then this should be the destroy route. And that's going to be a delete request. Okay, cool. We did it. We created the API. So I should be able to go to craft serve to serve the API. See, it's serving on port 8000. I'm going to open up Thunder Client. It's a VS Code extension that allows you, it's like Postman in VS Code. Pretty convenient. /todos /dogs. So let's make a dog. Let's see here. Do I already have a good body? No, I'm gonna make a dog. Spot. Actually, it's gonna be should be name. Spot. Age. 35. There's 2 quotation marks here, so let me fix that up a little bit. Oh. There we go. That's looking good. So it's a post request to /dogs. Oh, I know why. Okay. Because again, like most of these robust frameworks, they're kind of built with the intention that you're going to build your views in there. So they're really built to be a full stack framework. So they use what's called a Csrf token by default. And what the Csrf token is just make sure that like people can't be sending requests from anywhere else but your web page. So your web page is going to emit this token that it submits with the request to verify that, hey, the reason why I'm creating a new dog is because someone submitted it up from the form on your website. I don't want that, so I have to turn that off. And the way you do that is we're going to go to app, HTTP, middleware. We go to CSRF middleware, and then we're going to say I'm going to exempt all my routes from CSRF tokens that way. I could just specify just certain pages if I wanted to, but I'm going to exempt all of them. So now I can go back over here and then hit send and see now it works. And see, I created spot. Okay, and let me just do spot 2. Okay, so now if I do a get request, I get all the dogs. And if I do /1, I get just spot. Okay, so the show route works. And if I say /2, I get spot 2. So the show route's working. Now if I go to put and I turn spot 2 to Brutus, I rename the dog to Brutus. Okay, well there we go. Oh, nope. There we go. Rename the Brutus, and then I do a put request. And look, it's been renamed Brutus. And then I can delete Brutus by hitting delete /dog/2, because that's the param, the 2. And ta-da! Now just to double check that it was deleted, I'll go back to /dogs. I should only have spot now. And I only have spot. The API works. All the CRUD routes work. See, that didn't take so long at all. Okay, and then just other things I would need to do before we call it, before we start deploying it, is I would go to providers. Not providers, that's not what I want to do. I want to go to config providers.py. And then what I need to add here is CORS provider. And then I would add CORS provider. And then we would have to add all the CORS headers in, is it in middleware.py? Yeah, in here. So I would do like CORS equals, I'm just going to take it from the documentation to save time because they have a nice little picture of it. So let me scroll to the top, do the search, CORS. Okay. And again, this is just so that way if I build a front end for this API, it would take it. Okay, and then I can change it right here pretty easily, which is nice. You know, it's nice to see it more explicitly written so that way I know what the CORS headers are instead of just like a function that just kind of makes it magically happen. Cool, I think that's pretty much it before deployment. Now we can just start setting up for Heroku deployment. So I can just do Heroku specific things. I don't want to create that there. I want to create it in here. So what I need is a proc file for Heroku. So that's going to just be web gunicorn WSGI. That should do what it needs to do. I need a runtime.txt. We're basically here at the right, like Python 3.90. The exact spelling of it I always get confused on, so let me go refer to my Django tutorial where I mentioned that. Control F, Django. Nope, not that one. Yes, the Django ultimate reference. So right here I go through the whole deployment process for Django. Not a bad thing to read if you're learning Django. Here we go, 3.90, copy that. Okay, so that's there, proc file. Anything else I want in here? Oh, I need to install gunicorn. So let me just do pip install gunicorn. I also need psychopg, but I always spell it wrong, so let's hope for the best. Psychopg2, and again, that's the Postgres drivers for Python. Okay, and for some reason, if psychopg2 doesn't compile right for you, like right now it compiles fine for my computer, but you can also do psychopg2 binary, and instead that downloads a pre-compiled version, which may or may not work for your particular architecture. Wink, wink, M1 people. But that usually is a solution if it won't compile. So basically, generally you want to download psychopg, the raw drivers, because you rather it compile on your system, so that way it is working specifically for your system. But when that's not working for you, psychopg2, downloading the pre-compiled binary is the fun alternative. Same thing if you're a node. So if you download things like bcrypt, there's like bcrypt and there's like bcrypt.js, which is like an already compiled version of bcrypt. So generally, if you have these compile issues, either one, figure out what libraries you need to install on your machine for your C compiler to compile things successfully, like what's missing, or two, see if you can find pre-compiled binaries. So there's an alternative library. Okay, so that's all installed, which means now I can do pip freeze requirements.txt. So that way my requirements.txt has all my updated dependencies. Huzzah! Okay, so yeah, we're pretty much in good shape. Okay, we have all the things. So really, all that is necessary is for me to go like push this to GitHub and then connect this to Heroku. So github.com. I'm gonna click new. Okay. Masonite 0 to hero, or 0 to deploy. It's going to be public, so that way you guys want to check it out. It's there. Just look at my profile. And I will then connect this. Boop, boop. And then we'll just do a git add dot git commit dash m. Time to deploy. Origin main. I mean, not origin main. Git push origin main. Okay. And cool. That's there. Good. Now the next step is to head over to Heroku.com. And I am going to delete this project immediately after this video, so don't get any ideas. Okay, so we'll call this, create new app, Masonite 0 to deploy. And then I'm going to head over, I want to do a GitHub deployment. I prefer the GitHub deployment for my personal projects. I find this just to be an easier way of going, and you get the continuous integration of getting the automatic updates whenever you push to GitHub. I understand the argument that like it's good. I like to do most things in the CLI. Deployment, if I have to, I can, but if I don't need to, I'd rather not. I just like having things connected to my GitHub. It's just nice that I'm just pushing to one place and it updates all the things, instead of having to make like a separate push to like a Heroku repository on top of my pushes to GitHub using the Heroku CLI tool. If I maybe there is, but if there is a way to connect to my GitHub through the Heroku CLI to kind of cross both, check off both boxes, that'd be ideal world, but won't assume. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna look up Masonite. Okay, and 0 to deploy. There we go. I want to enable automatic deploy so that way anytime I push to GitHub, it automatically updates. Do one deployment right now because I already pushed to GitHub, so I'm not going to be able to trigger it automatically. I need to deploy it manually. That's going to start building out. It's going to be successful. I know that it's going to be successful. I'm not going to worry about that right now, because what I need to do is I need to set my environmental variables for my database, because the app won't work unless I have a database. So I have to head over the resources, provision a Heroku Postgres database. Yay, hobby dev free, good. Now I'm going to click over here to go look at those details, those database details. That's going to take a second to load. Cool. I'm going to the settings, and then here you're going to find the database credentials, and that's what I want to look at because I need to set up these environmental variables. So here's when we'll do that. I'm going to put that there. I want to put this. Technically, I kind of want all three of these side by side. So let's see if I can get that. Let's see here. There we go. Now for VS Code. Perfect. Okay. And then let me just close that. Good. So first I do want my secret key, which can be anything. So I'm going to go head over to settings. This is on my Heroku's app dashboard. So this is my database dashboard. This is my applications dashboard. I need to set up these environmental variables here. Okay, so I'm going to want a key. And I'm just going to just literally call it cheese. Just there has to be a key. And it has to be uppercase key. So let me make sure I don't screw that up, or the app won't work without a secret key. Then I need the database settings, so that's DB connection. That's going to specify the driver. That's going to be Postgres. Okay, and then the other ones, DB host. That's going to be 5432. That's just the default Postgres port. Okay, the database name I'm going to copy from over here. DB database. Okay. DB user. And that's going to be username. And then DB password. Okay. think we're good. Yep. We don't need the DB log. That's not important. Let's see. Did it finish building? It did finish building, it looks like. So I should be able to open the app. 500 internal error. Let's see here. Usually that happens when I'm missing the key. It must not like the key that I gave it. Your secret key. Okay. Well, last time it gave me a custom secret key. Why didn't it give it this time? Oh, this is the .env example. Let me go over the .env. There we go. Here's a key. Let's use that. That might maybe make a difference when it has like a proper key. Oh. Oh, so this says cheese. Okay, there we go. Save changes. Does that make you happy? Yes, that made it happy. It wants a proper key. So remember, look in your .env. Okay. And then you can also generate a new key. There's a command for that. Things like craft key or something. Okay, cool. And now if I go to /dogs, I should get an empty array. Or an internal. Oh, I got to migrate my database. Oops. So I'm going to go to the run console here. And then just do like craft migrate. To migrate my database so that way the tables exist. Oh no. Is the server running on host 5432? It didn't like it. That's interesting. What did I forget? DB database. That looks like I got that right. Let me just make sure there's like no extra like line breaks or anything. No, that's fine. User DB host 5432. Oh, wait a second. This should be this. This is made mistake. Host should be this. And then DB port should be the port. You can tell it's late in the evening. 5432. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's give it a second. And do you like it? Oh wait, I still gotta migrate the database. Run console. Craft migrate. Okay, migrate successfully. My little database. Yes, yes, it migrated. So that means this should work now. And we get an empty database. So our API is deployed. We have just deployed, we have built and deployed an API using Masonite in less than 40 minutes. Not bad. And again, it's not just like one route, not hello world, a full CRUD API. Okay, I can hit all the endpoints, create full interactivity on the front end with this API. So super cool. I like it. Okay, I like Python. I'm not always a fan of all the frameworks on Python. I'm a fan of this one. Try it out. Use it for your next project. It's pretty cool, especially if you like Ruby on Rails. Gives you all the nice Ruby on Rails feel or Laravel feel, but in Python. Okay, so you get the niceties that Python brings along to the table, like dictionary comprehensions and fancy things when you're making fancy routes. Although Rails and PHP both have their fancy things as well. JavaScript will always have my heart. Okay. So I'll see y'all later. Have a great day and enjoy.